Hey, well, this is your demo of the new features in Joi, including, of course, budget. So let me go into an event. The new features that you will see that weren't there before: resource. So in resource, you can add any suppliers you may have. You can also add volunteers, any groups of people that are going to help you deliver the event but aren't on the workforce. And you can send those suppliers briefs, collect information, and very importantly, get quotes from them as well, which I'll come back to. We also have assets. So again, you can create assets, any element that you may need on the event, and then allocate those assets to specific elements of the event. So in this case here, I've got an activity, play opening video, and I can tag that asset to that particular activity. So on the run sheet for the day, I know that the opening video is going to be available when we need it. And of course, as well as assets appearing, we've also got budget. So we've gone straight into the budget here. You'll see that the first page is the revenue page. Then we've got a cost page. So you've got two very distinct areas: collecting revenue, collecting costs. You have a quotes tab, so any quotes that you have relating to that event, you'll be able to see here, and you'll be able to see their status. You've got a summary, which will build out, and we'll come back to, because that will change as we put information in, and also access. Budgets are sensitive, so therefore access is treated separately from access to the event. So the event owner automatically has access to the budget, and then has to invite people who are part of the workforce to see the budget. If you're not invited specifically to the budget, then obviously the budget component is locked. So let's start with costs. You'll see that we've got a section name here. I'll just put in a section name, event management. And I can use this very much like an Excel and just enter lines and add more lines as I need them. In this case, I've obviously got a drop down. I can create items, which I'll show you where you create those in a moment. But I can then select an item and it has a unit cost attached to it. I can give it a quantity. So one technical producer working for 60 hours. And I'll give my total, and I'll put that in as a quote. So that gives me the unit cost. And if I look in here, I can have various controls on any given section. So I've got currency control. I can change this and quote in a different currency. There is consumption tax, VAT or GST, not relevant in the US, but for the other 186 countries that use it, very much is. I can apply a discount to a line, fees, markup, and show revenue unit rate. I'm just going to click revenue unit rate, and you'll see that it appears. So on that line item that I've created, I've got a unit cost and a unit rate, which means that if I display this section in revenue, then obviously it will display the unit rate. I could carry on adding line items as much as I wanted in there, as I said, like an Excel spreadsheet, add as many sections as I want, and also put a payment schedule according to a section, which again I'll come back to. You'll also notice that down the bottom here I've got linked tasks, link assets, and link quotes. So if I start off at link tasks, you'll see that I've got a task in with a quantity on it. So this is where I've put a task with a quantity of hours. I'll just cancel here, go into tasks, and you'll see I've added a task, technical production, and it has an estimated time on it. Because it's got an estimated time, it appears as a task that I can add to the budget. So if I go back to the budget and go back to costs, link that task, I can link to showing costs. I can again apply the line item or write my own description in here, and again it applies the unit cost, and I can save that. So now I've got my tasks, and you can see it appears in a different way because it's a link section, and I've got the control to manage those links. If there is a change to that task in the quantity, then I'll get a notification here to update it. Also with that asset, so that opening video that we showed you is an asset. I have shown that to link to costs, so I can show in costs, give it a name, just call it video, and again I can put in the unit cost. I know that I'm going to subcontract out and it's going to cost me $15,000, and that is an actual amount, let's say. Again, in section settings I can turn on show revenue unit rate, or indeed I can apply a markup. So if I wanted to apply a markup here, I could go, I'm going to put a 20% markup on that video production costs. I have the toggle on for markup, click the toggle on for markup, and it shows me the unit rate. So unit cost and the unit rate, and I can apply that. Again, if I make any changes to that asset, I'll get a notification. And the final part here is a link to costs, a link to quotes. So I've got a quote here for AV section, and I can add that, and that quote will appear in my costs and also show my unit rate. I'm just going to go here and manage quote, and it'll take me to the quote window. So this is a quote that I have sent to an AV supplier and requested that they actually provide me with a quote. If I just, that's active, I'm just going to click on a new tab and show you how that would appear for the AV provider or AV equipment provider here. So they can give me a quote reference number, they can give me a link to the quote, they can write in any descriptions or notes that they want on the quote. But importantly, they can give me a top line to the quote, so they can add as many line items as they want. They do have some control over the sections, so they can apply a discount. So in this case they've applied a discount. Again, they can apply GST or quote in a different currency. And once they are happy with that top line, they can submit it. You might get some suppliers who don't abide and give you this breakdown of the quote at a top level, and you can obviously add lines or information in as you want. And then that is done. So you now have a quote that you have requested from a resource, which you've checked the quote and you want to include it in your cost page. The other thing as well is I've asked the resource to put in billing details. So they've actually put in when they want a deposit and also when the balance will be due with dates of those payments. And likewise with my assets, I could go, well, actually, if I go manage the budget for the asset, there will be a payment schedule attached to that. So this the event is on the 28th of March. We're going to need the opening video well before that. So I'm going to say that we're going to want to have that made by Friday the 24th, and we're going to have to pay the full amount, which is $15,000. And we save that. So now there's a payment schedule in there as well. From costs, so now I'm building out all my costs associated with the event. And if I go to summary, I can see that building out. So I've got zero revenue at the moment, but I've got total costs. There's a cost per head, which is based off this number here. And it gives me a breakdown of costs, which is estimate, which is actual, and which is quoted. And you can also see I get this payment schedule, and obviously the red showing that I haven't received any money, so all of this is costing me and putting me in the red. So let's go from costs and look at revenue. So revenue can be handled in another way, in a number of ways. So if I was an event promoter and I was going to be selling tickets to this event, I could do put in all my ticket type categories and quantity and go 100, and I'm going to charge $1,000 to come to this event, and recurrence 1, so I'm getting $100,000 in revenue. So if I go straight to the summary here, I'll see total revenue, total costs, and a wonderful margin of 61%. But again, I haven't done anything with my payment schedule here. So, but this isn't a ticket, isn't a ticketed event. Let's say that you are doing the production for a client, and actually what you're doing is presenting all those costs to them, but with your own margins and own elements in there. So I can create a revenue budget linking straight from the cost. So I can click on an event management and add that, and you'll notice that technical producer, the unit cost was $50. It will display the unit rate of $2,000. I can then link the tasks, and it'll do the same thing because I've actually got the same task in there. I can link the asset, which the video was costing $15,000 to produce, and you put a 20% markup on it. So it's now showing the unit rate of $18,000. And the final one is the AV equipment, where again, I have applied a markup to that. And so it's showing a unit rate of $27,000. Now, if I go to the summary page, I'll see that my total revenue, what I want to bill the client is $62,000, costs $38,000, and my margin of 38%. But I also want to sort out that payment schedule. So I can click down here and go, when do I actually need payment from the client? Well, I need a deposit so I can pay for everything beforehand. So I'll request a deposit by that date, and let's say that deposit is $35,000, which gives me a percentage of 55%. And then the remainder of it, I'm happy with this client to pay at the conclusion of the event. So the day after the event, I'll put final, and that would be a calculation that I've made difficult for myself. What's that? 27,700. 27,700. So I can see that the total payment of received against the total here. So now when I go to the summary page, I can see that my payments are coming in, that I stay in the red, and all my payments are outgoing, and I can see what's quoted, estimate, etc. So my revenue and costs, I can see an overview of, when they all get to actual, I know the event is real, and that's the final margin for the event. So that now I'm happy with my revenue page, and I actually want to share that with the client. So I click share now. I've actually already made a version of this one, so this is going to come up as version 2 and a time and date stamp, and it gives me a breakdown of all the revenue items that I've listed there, and also the payment schedule, which I can switch on or off. I can now share that with the client as a URL, so they can see the quote that I'm giving them for the event and the payment schedule, or you can print it out. Indeed, you can also, if you're not happy with that presentation, you can export the revenue to Excel as well and manipulate it yourself. So that is very quickly how the budget works. Bottom line is that you can get a resource to get a quote. You can get all your quotes into costs as well as your assets and tasks, and add any number of sections that you want. Use it like an Excel spreadsheet, and then you can link those into revenue. And of course, if any of those items change, then you get the notification going, hey, there's an update available, and you can update your links so you don't miss anything in your budget, and you know that your totals are always correct. Now, how does that translate to homepage? If I go to homepage, you'll see now that there is a budget tab. If I click on the budget tab, I only have access to the budget tab for an account if I'm an administrator on the account. But here you can see that I can see my costs, revenue, costs, cash flow summary across all of my accounts. So I can see exactly where I am and the margins I'm getting, and gives me a total for the whatever period of time I set. So I can set my own 12-month period. I've got a budget table, so basically all of the budgets for all of the events I've got in here, I can just click on and see those budgets, but they also again show me the margin according to each event. I can see every quote, and this will accumulate over time, so I'll be able to see all the quotes, whether they've been accepted or pending, and be able to search those. So, look for people who have done things in the past. And of course I've got line items, so I can add as many line items as I want, and I just got this as a sort number, so I can group line items by sort numbers if I want. So that is the overview of your budget reporting at a account level. So you can see exactly where you are with all your revenue and your costs and your margin. And that is my very quick overview of budget, resource and assets. Thank you very much.